IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. Hope you're all well and keeping safe. On the podcast today, we are honored to have a very special guest. Varun Suchday is an award-winning writer, photographer, and slow traveler whose work has been published at distinguished publications like New York Times, BBC, Travel and Leisure, among many others. Varun is also the winner of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav videography competition organized by the Indian Tourism Ministry in 2022 for his work covering the Adivasi tribes and tribal culture in the states of Chhattisgarh and Odisha. Let's hop onto the episode and find out where Varun is taking us to today. So, with that introduction, we'd love to welcome Varun Suchday, a slow traveler, writer, and photographer to the Musafir Stories. Varun, thank you so much for being on the podcast and welcome.
Seth, it's an honor. I have been following Musafir Stories since quite a long time, and you guys are doing an incredible job, providing the platform to travelers who go off the beaten path. So I'm really happy to be here today.
Varun is being very humble, but Varun, it's entirely our honor to have you on the podcast. And like I was telling you even before we started the recording, Varun is really a breath of fresh air and one of the travelers who actually stands out from the lot, from the Instagram travelers, let me say. And I'm not trying to be demeaning to anybody. I also count myself in that category who actually enjoys taking pictures and everything. But Varun is definitely one of a kind, and we'll certainly find that out during the course of our conversation. But one for first-time listeners, the introduction I gave about you is very short and concise. Why don't you speak a little bit more about yourself and your work?
Sure. So I started traveling in 2015, and that was when I quit my job. And my very first trip was to South America. And I spent 1 year without realizing. And it was like an eye-opening trip because I learned so many things that otherwise you don't learn either via traditional educational means or even via the internet. And one of the things during the South American trip that I realized was that the South America that I saw for the first 3 months, that was the colonial South America. So that is like saying that you have seen Goa and you have seen India, right? So eventually I started digging deep. Slowly my Spanish picked up as well. So I started diving deep into the indigenous cultures of South America. So I'm not just talking about like the Incas, but even other smaller groups that still live in South America in that like old way. And I realized that it's just mesmerizing. Like the culture they have is so profound, so diverse, and so little is known about them. Even today, in this day of internet, even today, very little is known about them. So then that gave me a different direction. So I started traveling more towards, I started planning my travels more to incorporate indigenous cultures, to spend time with them, to learn more about them. And slowly that also kind of led me to conflict zones of South America and Central America. So I visited some like narcos controlled areas or FARC controlled areas of Colombia. I was on the cocaine highway, which includes Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua. And what I realized there was that what we see is a bigger picture. We just see the political picture. We don't see what everyday people go through. So then I started visiting conflict zones to understand the struggles of everyday people, like the struggle for food, for education, for a good night's sleep, for safety and security that we take for granted. That gave another dimension to my travels. And then because of climate change and everything, I'm a nature lover. So I love spending time in the wild. So I started visiting jungles, islands, hilltops, and started discovering of the places that are not on the map, because I feel like in many ways the internet is paralyzing us, it is limiting us. So I just totally threw away all the like guidebooks and blogs and everything, and I just followed local advice and local direction, and then I discovered places that you can't even imagine. And even though I discovered these places, I don't like, I myself, I as a responsible traveler, I don't like post them on social media, because I feel that they should be left as they are. And if somebody asks me, then I do guide them to get there. So wildlife, indigenous tribes, Adivasis, native tribes, conflict zones, and nature, and off the beaten path, or like not on the map places. So these are the core pillars of my travels.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess now listeners can relate to what my introduction meant when I say Varun is a different category of traveler, right? And with that introduction in mind, where are you going to take us, or what aspect of your travel are you going to show us today on the podcast, Varun?
So today I'm going to take you to my favorite part of India, that is Chhattisgarh and Odisha. Both of them are like big states. Both of them are amongst the least visited states for a variety of reasons. But even in these huge states, we are not going to focus on the entire state. We are just going to focus on two pockets of these states. One is Bastar in Chhattisgarh, and in Odisha, we are going to go to. I'm talking about like regions or districts as we call them here. So we are going to go to Koraput, Kotpad, Devmali Hills, Bonda Hills, and Malkangiri in Odisha, and Bastar and Dantewada districts of Chhattisgarh.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for kind of highlighting those as well. Like you rightly pointed, some of the still very underrepresented, and also to a large extent, they haven't been very commercial so far, right? So, looking forward to covering these places. Now, one of the first things that does pop up to mind, especially when you do mention these belts or these districts that you were mentioning, is that they're traditionally like associated to being areas on the Red Corridor, being associated to insurgency, violence, safety concerns, and stuff like that. Is that still an issue? Like, how much of that is largely things that are through the media, or how much of that is a reality? Do you want to share from your own experience?
Sure. So, some of the places that I mentioned, they are actually the very epicenter of the Red Corridor. They are the heart of the Red Corridor, but not all of them. And one thing that I can assure all the listeners is that, because I personally have encountered coincidentally Maoist and Naxals in 2 to 3 different remote places, but they were very kind to me. They were very helpful. They are not after travelers or everyday people. Their fight is against the administration, against the government. So even so, like what I'm trying to say is that you can go with an open mind, with a free mind, without any fear. So it's a very like it is because of that there is not enough tourism, which results in like lack of opportunities for locals. So if we can keep that image aside, if we can keep the fear aside, and if we visit, then there's like a whole virgin part of the country that's waiting for you with open arms.
Absolutely. I think some really good insights there, and also will certainly help allay some of the unfounded fears, right? Obviously, there has been some history in the past, but like you mentioned, there is several layers to it, and there's a lot of background to it. But at least good to hear that, at least from travelers' point of view, this is something that is certainly one should be okay to explore. Now, in terms of, I know time of the year, like some parts of the year might not be very ideal to make trips to this part of the country. Do you have any recommendations as to when is an ideal time to visit these places, or if one is planning a trip in this part of the country, when might be a good time?
Sure. So, like as with most of the places in India, it's best to avoid the summers. So that is like starting from, I would say, like March all the way up to June. So that's like the worst time to go. If you want to see greenery, if you want to see waterfalls, then, and if you don't mind like a bit of rain, then July and August are ideal months. If you don't like the rain, then I would say that anywhere from September all the way to February is an amazing time to visit these places. Again, if you visit right after the monsoon, then you will see like both Bastar and Odisha at their greenest, and all the waterfalls will have a lot of like force and water.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for setting that context too. Now, just jumping into the core of the conversation, right? Obviously, one of the key experiences from your travels that we wanted to cover off is your interactions and your experiences meeting with the indigenous people of this part of the country, right? The Adivasis, like we mentioned them, or the tribals, the various tribes of the region, right? There's also not just like one tribe or anything like that. Do you want to shed some light on that, like what your experience has been, like even outlining what the various tribes are, your interactions with them, parts of these states they found, etc., like those types of things, Varun?
Sure. So all in all, I spent 2 months in these two parts with 8 different tribes, and I'll mention the names of the tribe. So on the Chhattisgarh side, or on the Bastar side, I spent time with Muriaa, Maria, Halba, and Gond tribes. On the Odisha side, I spent time with Dhurva, Kond, Praja, and Bonda. So these are the eight tribes that I spent my time with. Something like one of the reasons why I like focus on tribal cultures is because it is a dying way of life. These cultures, especially their younger generations, they are modernizing at a rapid pace, and with each dying culture, we lose hundreds or centuries worth of knowledge. We lose with each dying culture. So when you visit, when you meet each one of these tribes, like they are just mind blowing. Like the knowledge they possess, the arts that they practice, their cultural practices, their religious practices. Because even though they are kind of living in a, I would say, like there is a battle going on between Christian missionaries and Hindus to pull them towards their side. So they're also losing their original religion. So this is the ideal time to go visit and experience something that might not exist maybe 20 years later. So, if let's say I want to start with if I just give like some brief overviews of some of these tribes, like some of the highlights, then I would like to introduce. So this is the Muriaa tribe. So just to give you a geographical perspective, Jagdalpur is the heart of Bastar. So if you want to explore Bastar, you can base yourself in Jagdalpur. The first tribe that I'm going to mention, that's the tribe that is the closest to Jagdalpur. So it's only like about an hour and a half away. And this is Kondagaon. And Kondagaon is actually also the heart of bell metal. So they create a lot of metal craft, and Kondagaon is the epicenter of this art. So and the Muriaa people, the Muriaa tribals, they are the ones who create all these bell metal objects. And amongst them, besides of course the metal craft, there is one other practice which is on the verge of extinction, and that is the concept or the idea of Gurumai. Gurumai are usually the elderly women of the tribe who used to go from village to village, and they used to sing songs. And these songs, they carried like centuries worth of knowledge. So they would go, and these are the songs about the forest, about animal movements, about herbs, about food, and they would go from one village to another, and they would sing these songs, and then from that village they would acquire more local knowledge, then they would go to another village, then they would again continue this. So this was a very like old practice, but now like I met one Guru Mai, but now like this is the last generation or the last of them, and they are already hitting like 60, 70 years. So you can imagine what will happen after 10 years. And one common theme that I have come across throughout the world when I'm meeting indigenous tribes, then that is that the younger generations are not interested in learning about their own culture or carrying forward their cultural practices. So that is why I go and I document these practices so that they like we don't lose them forever. We at least have
Yeah.
some form of it like preserved in a way. That is your Muriaa tribe. That's like one element or one aspect of the Muriaa tribe. Then I would like to is it okay if I swing between the states?
Yeah, for sure. That should be okay.
Fine, okay. Then I would also mention the Halba tribe. When I was with the Halba tribe, I found out now. I mean, I don't know if if you can do a poll or something, but I would ask this question to the listeners that how many of them are for and how many of them are against the dowry system?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them would try to be on the ethically right side and say that it's against, right? That would be the natural response, I'm assuming. But I'm keen to find out what you're up to with this.
So, what if I suggest a dowry system that everybody in the world would agree to? So I'll tell you the dowry system. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like because there are so many of these things that you learn when you spend time with them that you realize that these guys have figured it out. You know. So I'm going to explain the dowry system, and this is particularly the Halba dowry system. So in the Halba dowry system, when a guy and a girl they marry, there are set rules that like maternal uncles, maternal grandparents, paternal grandparents, paternal uncles and aunts and everything from both sides of the union. So like both from the bride side and the groom side, they are supposed to give X amount in dowry to the other. Now, what is the X amount? The X amount are saplings of different trees. And it's not just one tree. So, like, let's say mama, right? So, like, maternal uncle. So, maternal uncle is supposed to give 20 banyan trees or 20 sal trees or 20 mahua trees to the groom's family. Then the groom's family will return the favor with some other tree. And these trees, they are not private property, they belong to the village and they are planted across the village, and their weddings are also like thought provoking. The way their weddings work, they don't. So nowadays it's kind of changing. They're kind of shifting towards, I would say, like going round and round across the fire. But the traditional Halba wedding, it usually takes place. So they do their fairas. So they plant a tree, a new tree, a sapling, and then they do their fairas around the tree. And at the same time, the way like they construct, so you know how we have these like mandaps and all, like we kind of bring up all these like big fat Indian wedding stuff, you know.
yeah,
So instead of that, for a wedding to take place a month or 2 months prior to the wedding, across where the wedding will take place, they have to plant X numbers of trees of different species, and then only the wedding can take place in the midst of these new saplings. And no two weddings can take place at the same in the same area. So what they are doing is they are organically regrowing the forest through their dowry
yeah,
system, through their wedding system, wedding cultural practices and all. So
yeah.
like
Super interesting. Here we are on our high chairs calling ourselves modern and progressive, and these are the guys who are actually, doing things that really matter, right? Yeah, I really wish every one of us around the world, not just in India, can follow this dowry system, right?
right.
And I'm sure. I hope there's like competition in this regards, right? Who gives more or who gives more variety of plants and saplings, like that kind of competition. But yeah, really eye opening. I've not come across this type of system before.
So like one all these Adivasi groups with whom I spend time, they have one common. So like even though they live in close proximity, they are culturally very different from each other. So if you go to, like, you have tribal hearts. sometimes it might not be possible for people to go visit their villages because it takes a lot of time. Sometimes it takes me 2 to 3 days to visit a village where I find the information that I'm sharing here.
Wow.
Because there are a lot of factors. It's very difficult to find the elders and then to find the translators and then to, convey the message and then for them to trust you to share all this knowledge and all this information and all. So you can visit these tribal hearts, and in any given tribal heart, you will hear languages from three different schools of language. So, like, how we say like Indo-Gangetic or
Right.
Tibeto-Burman or Austro-Asiatic. So these are very different from each other, despite the fact that they are living in close proximity.
Interesting.
So that is another angle. So, but across the different tribes, the one motto that I always heard was Jal, Jeevan, Jungle. So water, forest, life.
Very close to the earth, basically.
Very close to the earth. They are not pastoralists, they are not agriculturalists, they are still hunter gatherers, they are still foragers. Hunting is not so much a part of their life anymore because there are, as we know, like there are very few wild animals left. But
Right.
I will also share one of the like hunting practices that they follow, which will also very eye opening and thought provoking. But before that, I'll focus more on the food and drinks and the foraging part of it because that is the core part of their life.
Sure.
So the only thing that they depend on the outside world for are salt, sugar, rice, and tea. Everything else they forage from the jungle. And when I was living with them, every day we would go in the jungle, and every day they would be like, asking me, like, do you want to have like mushrooms? You want to have root vegetables? You want to have leafy greens? Or you want to have some other kind of vegetable, bamboo or something like that? And at any given time, because you know how they grow seasonally, so at any given time, they have access to 15 to 20 kinds of leafy greens, leafy vegetables, same amount of root vegetables, more than 30 kinds of edible mushrooms, and similarly around 10 to 12 different kinds of vegetables like bamboo and stuff. Like all of these they just grow wild. So we would go every day. We would like go and forage for different local varieties, come back, cook, eat, and they never overdo it. They always do it very consciously to make sure that it gets time to regrow, that the jungle gets time to regrow. So if you ever get, because nowadays we have all these like farm to table concept, like this is like forest
Yeah.
to table concept. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it is a priceless experience. If you ever get a chance, just go to any like Adivasi village and tell them that you want to eat like murga bhaji or you want to eat media page or anything, and then they'll take you in the jungle or even bamboo for that matter, and then you can have it.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Truly DIY in a real sense here, right? In terms of you making your own food, and like I said, forest to table concept as
That's
well.
it.
And in general, about the eating practices as well, do they vastly differ from tribe to tribe, or like a lot of them are around the same principle, but obviously depending on where they live and what's available, they tend to use that, and also between, let's say, vegetarian, non-vegetarian options, if I have to break it up that way. What did you notice?
So actually, even though they are like meat eaters, but meat is not frequently consumed. And the reason behind that is I will kind of bring into the hunting practice that they
Right.
have. So it's also that is because that's also very interesting, and it kind of even like because nowadays we are living in the age of I guess mass production of meat and everything, So this is very eye-opening because what they do with meat is they have besides like smaller game. So besides think of like like wild chickens and all. So besides smaller game, any bigger game, they only have a window of 12 hours when they hunt. The entire village, first of all, they have a huge like celebration and everything. Then the entire village goes to the jungle around after sunset in the dark. They all go to the jungle with their bows and arrows, and they hunt. So whatever they hunt in that next 12 hours is like the only big game that they consume during the throughout the year. Now, the beauty is that there are certain rules that they have to follow. First and foremost, they never hunt a female
Okay.
because female they believe that female has not they believe because female like female animals are like they have the beauty of or the magic of procreation, so they don't want to kill the source. Number two, they never hunt an animal, a male that is not hit puberty. They want a male to at least breed once before they hunt to diversify the genetic pool. So imagine like how advanced they were or they have been
Yeah.
since since time immemorial.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like a lot of these things we don't even tend to. I mean, yeah, even in our own practices, like I said, just whatever is available quickest and whatever is the quickest way to like get it to your table, and everything is now factory produced or factory cut and all of that, right? So look at which direction we are going and look at where they're coming from.
Where that comes from.
So
And
very
like
interesting. Yeah,
and we recently figured out like genetics, DNA and all these things, natural selection. But they knew long back that we have to ensure like a diverse genetic pool so that it
yeah,
is like it optimizes survival of the species.
yeah. Truly, very progressive in a real sense, right? Not just on paper to sound very scientific and intellectual about it, but they're actually doing it on the ground.
Ground, exactly. And
So
it's like
yeah,
time tested practice, right? They've been doing it, they've been following it since centuries. So
yeah, for sure. Thank you. A lot of new learning today.
yeah, that's what I said. Like every day with them is like it's just golden. Every day you
Yeah,
realize that how much they know about nature and how much we can learn from them, rather than imposing our development model or our Vikas model on them.
yeah.
So, and I think one thing that really saddens me, because recently I was in Bihar and Jharkhand, and it really saddened me a lot that the tribal cultures over there, they have been lost. So when I went there and when I was talking to the people and when I was telling them that, I want to meet the tribals, like the real tribals who are still following their practices, they all kept saying this thing like this. They all kept using this word, which really irritated me. And that was that, oh, like, tumko pichde hue work se milna hai. Like, you want to meet backward people. And I'm like, please don't use that. You know,
Right.
don't use it if you don't understand them.
Yeah.
Your lack of understanding doesn't make them backward. So that is also like this is also like another, I would say, like wrong image of the tribals, that they are backward, they don't have knowledge, and we need to educate them, we need to bring them to the mainstream. Instead of that, I think we have to learn from them. We should preserve their culture, we should promote their culture, and we should adapt these practices.
Yeah. If anything, I think it's becoming very clear which of us is the backward in terms of everything we are doing, right? To destroy things and destroy nature, right? Yeah, it's clear. But yeah, I think the key is coexistence and learning from each other, right? I think that's the important bit here. Hopefully, this is something, like I said, it's already a challenge that we are losing out on a lot of these things because these are dying way of life. Last thing you want to do is speeding up that process by these type of practices and trying to bring them into the mainstream rather than treat them as the way they are and learn from them.
Precisely.
But yeah, yeah, certainly some very interesting things to do. And like you mentioned as well in passing earlier on, one of the easier ways to learn about these different tribes also would be the hearts, right? The hearts are basically markets, you could say, right? Markets of a kind that usually happen in a village or in a place that's in the proximity of 2 or 3 villages where tribes and indigenous people from different villages come in. Do you want to share a little bit more about that in terms of what these are, how your experience visiting these were, and what types of things, I won't say merchandise, but yeah, there's everything from food to their produce to the handicrafts they work on. Like a lot of things are available in these huts, right? You want to shed some light on that, Varun?
Sure. So hearts are weekly markets. So, like until 10 years ago, they didn't even have, most of these tribals, they didn't even have the concept of money. They used to follow the barter system. And they live like, either up on the hills or they live deep in the jungle or by the riverside. So they don't live close to traditional markets or cities or villages. So they have their own cluster of villages in like far off from the roads. So each day of the week, wherever you go, be it Bastar, be it Dantewada, be it Odisha, you can go to any big town or village and ask them like where is like aaj ka haat kahan hai or where is the haat today, and you can visit these hearts, and essentially these hearts are markets where all these tribal people from different tribes, they come and they sell their produce and they exchange. Sometimes even today, like they have barter system amongst the tribes, so you can purchase and you can experience lots of different products. I'll just give you a few names. So metal craft is huge, so you can buy metal craft or metal items. You can buy their traditional dress. So their traditional dress is essentially just one wrap of cloth that they wrap around their body. So you can purchase that. You can purchase tribal jewelry. You can purchase bamboo products. They are excellent artisans of bamboo products. So they create like unbelievable pieces out of bamboo. So I would say I would highly recommend buying bamboo products. Some of them are also into pottery, so you can even like purchase, if you find not a lot, but you can find some pottery items as well. When it comes to food and alcohol, so they also like distill and brew their own alcohol, and the things that they brew are like amazing, like some of the most unique drinks you will come across in the world. So I would mention three of them, and because when you visit these hearts, you have these different sections. So you can also buy a lot of forest produce, or not forest produce, but like whatever they have forage. So you can buy a lot of these leafy vegetables, mushrooms, and root vegetables that I mentioned that you won't find elsewhere. That's also a great. These are also great things to buy and then cook. If you can take it back home, or you can cook at your place, or maybe cook at the hotel or resort wherever you are staying. So coming back to alcohol, so they have a whole section in the back of the heart where there will be all these. So like alcohol, you would see that alcohol is always sold by women,
Okay.
which
Interesting.
also which also tells you a lot. Right?
Yeah.
Like show me a city, show me a bar in a city, in a metro where women are the like kind of like centerpiece of like these bars. They are selling alcohol, or they are waitressing, or they are bartending, right?
Yeah.
Usually
Yeah.
like
That's
it is
true.
kind of considered unsafe for women to be around men and alcohol, and it's a deadly combination. But
Yeah.
so that tells you a lot about their culture too, right? That all the 100% of them, they'll all be women would be serving alcohol. There are three main kinds of alcohol that they serve. One is what they call sulfi, or tari, what is also known as tari in other parts of India. And this is essentially, you have the palm tree. They make a cut in the palm tree. They place a clay pot under the cut, and then like that pot fills up in like 8 to 10 hours. So they do it around sunrise, and around sunset they bring it down. So it's like a white liquid, and drop by drop starts seeping in. So it's a lot like maple syrup, how people collect maple syrup in Canada.
Yeah.
So drop by drop it gets collected, and it gets fermented by the natural yeast in the environment. So nothing is added to it. So, and then in the evening, like everybody sits around. So I've had, you can also have it at the you can have it at the hearts. I've also had it in the villages. You can go to any village and tell them that you want to try tari, and they'll like bring the pot down for you. And the way they give it to you, the way they serve is also very beautiful. Like they take a leaf and they make a
Yeah.
boat out of it, and they put like two twigs to make sure that the leaf holds itself, and then they pour it in the leaf.
I think I saw it was called as dona, or whatever the little leaf or the cup they make out of leaf, right? That's what it was called.
Right.
Basically, like a cup for you.
Exactly, like a cup paper boat kind of a thing, like a boat
Yeah.
of it. So, and so
Yeah.
that is one. Then they have sulfi and mahua. Mahua is the only known alcohol distilled from flowers. So that is also something you can try there. Mahua, Sulfi, Tari, these are some alcohols that you can try in these hearts, and they even give you by the bottle, so you can purchase that as well. Food wise, they don't sell like a lot of cooked food. They don't bring any cooked food, so you can only buy raw vegetables, craft like
Right,
arts
right.
and crafts, and then alcohol at the hearts. And one more thing I would like to bring in at this point is that January and February, these are the best months if you want to like if you don't want to travel like I do, if you don't want to go too deep and still experience different cultures, because throughout January and February there are lots of tribal festivals, and these are anywhere from 3 days to 4 days to 7 day affairs. So you can visit these tribal festivals, and then you'll get a very amazing idea of what the culture is. You can interact with them, and you can learn more about them. And you'll have like different dates, different tribal groups. They celebrate different festivals. So
Okay. Anything specific that you'd like to call out in terms of these festivals, or that you got a chance to be a part of, Varun?
So actually, I haven't witnessed one yet. So
Okay.
I've not visited in those months. So they are kind of they are aligned with the winter solstice, and they are again like kind of like what we have like Pongal, then
Yeah.
Baisakhi, Makar Sankranti in Gujarat. So it's kind of it has to do with the winter solstice. But I haven't visited, but you will get to see a lot of like folk songs, tribal dances, and other kind of like banter and sports and everything. So they're very like rich and colorful and happening all the time. So and they're very open. So it's not like what we think of festivals where you have to like get tickets or anything. They happen in the
Yeah.
wild. So they just happen in
Right.
the
Right.
jungle or amongst trees, and you can just like feel free to go.
Yeah, I came across a couple of interesting ones. We could definitely, I think, something that is spoken about a little bit at least is the Bastar Dasera, right? It's supposed to be one of the longest running festivals in the world, it claims to be, right? A 75-day festival. I don't know any other festival that runs for that long, but did you hear anything about this particular festival? Also very different from our version of Dasera that's usually celebrated in the rest of the country, I would say.
Right. So I was there for Bastar Dashera in
Okay.
2021,
Uh-huh.
and I attended it. For me, it was a huge disappointment.
Why would you
So
say so?
because like it was very strange. Like it was kind of like just a think of it as like a carnival or like Julus, like a procession.
Okay.
So it was a procession of the three main deities of Bastar. So that
Okay.
is Danteshwari Devi, the two others, so like Danteshwari Devi, and then there's a sister one, I forgot her name, and then another one. There are three deities, and it's essentially just a procession of these three. They make like a huge
Right, right.
what the-
The chariot.
so chariot. So they make a
Yeah.
chariot out of like bamboo and wood and everything, and then they just kind of go around, take the three deities around. So it's like a Rath Yatra kind of a thing, but nothing like thing that highlights the local culture. So it was an all right experience for me. And it's very crowded, so that's another thing that.
Okay, but yeah, it's supposed to be a 75-day festival. I'm sure it's hard for anybody to be like, unless you have a lot of time in hand, like to experience the whole of it. But it concludes at the same time that actual Dasera happens around India, right? Other parts of India. Yeah, it clearly doesn't seem to be having its origins in the story of Ramayana or anything like that. So it's different in that way. And yeah, like you mentioned, it seems to be tied to the chariot and I guess a little closer to the festivals we see in Puri and Odisha, right? So maybe some
Right.
little closer to that. But yeah, very interesting nonetheless for just for being a 75-day festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something. And also, just quickly going back to the hearts, right? You did touch upon a lot of the things. One interesting thing I came across as well, I don't know if I'll call this a delicacy, but ant chutney, red ant chutney is something that was very peculiar I came across. Any experience coming across that in one of the hearts you visited, Varun?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned this because this also reminded me of the fact that if you can't attend any of the other hearts, make sure to attend the Sunday Haat that takes place in Jagdalpur.
Okay.
So you don't have to go anywhere, plan a weekend trip, base yourself in Jagdalpur, go early in the morning and just visit. I think it's called the Sanjay Gandhi Market where the Haat takes place in Jagdalpur. And that is where you will see the ant chutney, the red ant chutney. So, what the locals, the tribals, they believe is that the sting of the ant chutney has antibiotics. So, there are two ways of interacting with it. One is to consume the ant chutney, and these are live ants. These are not dead ants. So they give you again. They
Okay.
give you in this in this leaf, and these are all live red ants, and you just eat it with like pakoda or with anything roti or anything. Um,
Oh.
if you have a serious injury or a serious ill like serious sickness, then what they do is when you go like you will see these like metal pots in which they'll have all these live red ants, and then they'll be serving you the red ant in these paper cups, oh sorry, in the leaves. If you have a serious ailment, then they will ask you to place your hand in the pot.
Oh my god. That's like trial by fire.
It was like, yeah, trial by fire. So they'll say like, like death by a thousand stings kind of a thing. So,
Yeah.
so they
Uh,
will.
did you try?
So
I mean, yeah, I hope you didn't get yourself bitten, but did you at least try tasting it?
no, I'm a hardcore vegetarian.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Okay, okay.
I didn't I didn't try it. I just saw it. So
Yeah, very, very peculiar. And I think these are also a little different from at least these are not the little red ants or the black ants you see. I mean, at least in South India, the not the small ones that you see. These are pretty big red ants, right? That's what I noticed in the couple of videos I saw of it. I think one would definitely need like flush down using selfie or one of the other wine or the local brews. I think after you've had red ant chutney, but I don't know. I came across this while looking it up that Gordon Ramsay, like he had it on one of his menus apparently, the red ant chutney, but I wouldn't call myself that adventurous to try the red ant chutney yet. But interesting to know that this is an option in case you're interested. And another thing, interesting thing I came across as well. Again, this will always have people on both sides of the aisle, but the traditional cockfights, right? That is also something that some of these hearts are known for. I understand, right? Or has that been your experience as well? Like, did you come across these happening at the hearts?
yeah. They take place at all the hearts, or at least all the like I would say slightly remoter hearts, and people gamble, so they train their cocks, and
Yeah.
then there is a usual like gambling pot, and so essentially they tie like a blade
Yeah.
to one of the foots of the hen and then on of the cock, and then they fight, and whichever one cuts the other one first wins.
Yeah. Yeah, an older and traditional practice. I think in some of the villages, at least in South India as well, you see the practice. But again, like this has people on divided on either side of the aisle, right? Some are strictly against it, and another view as these are traditional practices and they've just been carrying on for years. But there's something interesting that I found on these arts as well, right? One of the things that does draw in large crowds, I understand, basically form a ring of people around you and a lot of commotion and shouting and yelling and all of that goes on.
Yeah, large drunk crowds as well.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I would pretty much call them as, let's say, our version of the malls, right? You get your food, you get to meet people, you get to buy things, and you're also getting some entertainment, right? So that way you could, I guess, equate it. Yeah, it's not the same thing, obviously, but in your cities you have malls and places to hang out, and for the tribals, these are their versions of the malls, I could say. Right in
Wow,
my
that's a very
little
that's an excellent corollary, like open air malls.
yeah, yeah, just a lot of unique experiences, right? Very, very different from anything you usually would associate with, in a traditional sense, what we like to call as travel, right? But even from, let's look at it from places to see type of a perspective, what would you like to call out from this area, this belt, that are, let's say, just marvels of nature or beautiful things one should check out as they make the trip and not just interact with the locals, but also like see things? Varun?
Yes, I'm glad you asked this because there's a whole lot more to these places, even beyond the tribals. And across India, if you take the Northeast out of the equation, then Chhattisgarh and Odisha, especially this belt, has the most like untouched and virgin forest that you can experience. And that is again the reason behind that is both the Naxals who are not allowing any kind of mining and the tribals who are the protectors of these forests, and they are like not just the protectors but they're also like expanding the forest through their practices that I mentioned. So one can just lose oneself in the forest. So I will tell you, like there is Kangar Valley National Park. So I would highly recommend people to visit Kangar Valley National Park. You can do bike trips, you can do four-wheel drive jeep safaris, you can do boat rides. There are all kinds of things that you can do to explore Kangar Valley. Then you can Bastar is the land of waterfalls. So Chitrakoot is known as the Niagara Falls of India. You can visit Chitrakoot Falls. You can swim in Tirathgarh Falls, and Tirathgarh is one of those falls where you can actually go behind the fall. Uh, and there's also like a small pool, so you can swim in the pool as well. There are excellent trails. If anybody is interested in trekking and hiking, there are excellent trails across both Bastar and Chhattisgarh. Sorry, Bastar and Odisha. One of the most famous ones is the Dolkal Trek, and there's an interesting story behind that as well. So it is believed
Okay.
that the fight between Parshuram and Ganesh took place in these hills, and when finally Parshuram swung his axe and threw it at Ganesh, it chopped Ganesh's one tusk. So that's why you see Ganesh has like one half tusk and one full tusk.
Right.
So it took that tusk off, and the axe like hit the hill right around where the Dolkal peak is. And people say that that is why this is also the iron rich area of India
Yeah.
because Parshuram's axe had a lot of iron, like it was an iron axe. So and I would also like to briefly take the listeners across the border because I feel that we haven't talked much about Odisha. So I would like to mention some amazing places in Odisha as well. So first of all, when you go from Jagdalpur, when you cross the border, the first major town that you will hit is Kotpar, and this is like Kotpad, Kotpar, and Kotpar is home to Kotpad weaving. So this is like geographical weaving style.
Right, right, right.
So
Yeah, this
this
has
is
a GI tag also, I think, right?
geotag. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah. So Kotpad weaving. So you can visit the Kotpad town, and there are two Padma Shris whose houses you can visit, and they will show you the Kotpad weave themselves. So that will be like a very enlightening experience, very enriching experience. Then further on, another I would say 100 kilometers or so, you will hit what they call the Deomali Kati or the Deomali Hills. Now, Deomali Hill is the highest point of Odisha, and it is right out of a Monet painting. Both the road up to the hill, the surroundings, the villages that are in the valley. So it's a valley with a summit. So the villages in the valley, so you will meet Kond Adivasis there, you will meet Praja Adivasis. These are the main inhabitants of the valley. But it is like stunning, like it's right out of a painting. And you can just keep exploring without any GPS or anything, and you will come across stunning sights. You will see waterfalls, you will see peaks, you will see these idyllic villages or hamlets tucked in like the cliffs and mountains. So Devmali Ghati also I highly recommend to anybody who visits this part. And then coming further south, another 150 kilometers, you reach Bonda Ghati. Now, Bonda Ghati was inaccessible 20 years ago. Bundagati was essentially what Sentinel Islands are today. So anybody who approached Bundagati used to face arrows by the Bonda
Wow.
tribals.
Interesting.
So, but it has opened up in the last 20 years. Again, there is no like tourism infrastructure. There is one village, and in that village, there is only one like guest house, very simple, basic guest house, and two to three dabas. And from there, you can approach Bonda Ghati. You can go up. It's like a very curvy road. You can go up, and again it's a very beautiful, very mesmerizing, very untouched, and like you will see these mud brick houses, clay houses with thatched roofs, and you will meet the Bonda people. You'll get to learn about their culture, which is like amongst all the cultures, it's amongst the most untouched, or one which is like the furthest from modernization. That area is also very beautiful. Then from Mondagati, you can come back to like Dantewada side. So Dantewada is also beautiful. Around Dantewada also there are some like scenic spots.
This is back in Chhattisgarh, right?
This is back in Chhattisgarh. If you're coming from Bondagati to Chhattisgarh, because Bondagati is like the kind of like the southernmost point of Odisha. Southernmost in the sense like then from there you can kind of again come back into Chhattisgarh. Instead of taking the highway, you can take the back road. And again, this back road would take you through very, think of them as like time warp villages, and with like backdrops of mountains and jungles, and there's a river flowing by, and you're just going through these. And like one more thing that you would encounter in most of these villages is that a lot of the inhabitants, a lot of the villagers, a lot of the tribals, they don't wear any clothes, which is for me, it is very poetic, because like that is a very like, natural way of existing. So when you take these back roads, you would come across like hand pumps under which like the whole village is bathing, especially like the grandmoms and the mothers and the children. They're applying mud to their bodies, and under the hand pump, they are taking a shower or bathing. Same with men. So you will see like all these things that you like, it's like beyond our thought process or beyond our imagination. So that particular road is also very offbeat and very interesting to explore. Just it's like a stretch of around 40 kilometers, and very few people frequent that road. You won't come across any other vehicle on that on that little strip.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned at the beginning, also before we had the chat, that one could potentially like do a 2 month itinerary and still have a lot of things you did not touch or still remaining, right? So there's a lot to explore. It's just that the place has been very underserved and also not explored as much. One of the reasons, like you mentioned, was lack of tourist infrastructure, which might actually be a good thing, at least for now, is what I'm feeling. But even from your experience, like for somebody who's visiting from outside, in terms of staying and even the language, right? That was another bit I did not bring up. I failed to bring up at the beginning. How did you get about like these two aspects, like living plus the language aspect?
So there are like, see, if you don't want to dive too deep, if you just want, let's say you want to go for a 1 week trip, right? And then language isn't an issue. First of all, you can, so I'll like kind of give an itinerary now so that listeners can have a better idea if they want to plan a trip there. So you can fly or take a train to Raipur, which is the capital of Chhattisgarh. Then from there, you can either fly to Jagdalpur, which is the capital of or the district headquarters, Bastar district headquarters. So you can either take a direct flight from Raipur to Jagdalpur, or you can take an overnight bus from Raipur to Jagdalpur. Base yourself in Jagdalpur for Bastar. In Jagdalpur, you will find accommodation for all kinds of budgets. So you have like really good resorts. You have something for backpackers as well, for families, for couples, for all types of travelers. Food wise, also all kinds of restaurants. Similarly, there you can arrange your transportation there. So you can hire a taxi in Jagdalpur, and then the taxi driver will take you around. So from Jagdalpur, you can make day trips to Chitrakoot, Tiratgarh, Dholkal, Kangar Valley, Dantewada, all these places. They're within like 2 to 3 hours distance. So you can easily incorporate the Busters segment. Within like 3 to 4 days, you can visit all these places, including some huts, couple of tribal villages. So you get a sense of everything: nature, culture, And then from there, you can move to Koraput. So Koraput is what Jagdalpur is to Bastar. So go from Jagdalpur to Koraput, base yourself in Koraput. And Koraput also has some religious importance. I forgot what it is. I didn't do the religious part of it. So Koraput has all kinds of hotels and restaurants and resorts and other infrastructure. So you can base yourself in Koraput and then go to Devmali Ghati. And then next, so you can, from going from Jagdalpur, you can visit Kotpar, spend about a couple of hours in Kotpar, then get to Koraput, stay in Koraput. Then next day from Koraput, you can go to Devmali Ghati. And the following day, you can go to Bonda Ghati and come back to Chhattisgarh. So that's like your 7-day trip, 7-day itinerary of this particular part.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's really helpful because, yeah, a lot of them, I don't know if they have the capacity to do much like a roughed out trip like you did, right? 2 months living with the tribes there and spending time living with them and eating and drinking what they were and visiting their huts and stuff like that. So I don't know if everybody will have the opportunity, but it was really great actually learning about a lot of these things for me personally too. Well, what's the best way for listeners and readers to follow your work, and especially this part of your work where you're capturing these really last and dying of practices and lifestyles?
So I write on my own travel blog, and it is called Winds of Travel, WINDS, windsofttravel.com. Lately, I have been creating videos as well to give people a better visual idea of these places and people. And my YouTube is the same, Winds of Travel. Instagram, I also post some photos with short stories and snippets. And my Instagram handle is Third World Storyteller.
Okay, we'll make sure to include these as well. Yeah, brilliant social media handles to follow too and learn and experience a few of these things. Thank you so much, Varun. Firstly, for coming to the Musafir Stories, right? Like I said, it's an honor for us to have you, such an accomplished traveler and such a different kind of traveler, really. Secondly, there's so much out there to learn and discover and uncover that a lot of us are really unaware of. So thank you for opening our eyes to the underappreciated and unexplored parts of India and the people of India, really, right? The tribes of India that, in one sense, are the true inhabitants of this land. So, thank you so much, Varun. It's really, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you for hosting me, Seth, and it was sheer joy talking to you. And it felt like we are conversing over a cup of tea somewhere in some remote part. So it was an honor and a true pleasure to be here and to talk to you.
Thank you, Varun. The pleasure is all ours. That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.